Hello, friends. Apologies for that bout of coughing. Just in case you didn't catch it earlier, I I am recovering from COVID, and it's definitely um, my lungs are my weakest probably point, and that has been really bothering me. So, in case you missed it, I just got a coughing spell, and I just could not stop myself. So I apologize for that. But let's get back into why you here, and so many of you are experiencing this, called low progesterone. So I started off, in case you missed the earlier live, I started off by talking about how one of the earlier signs of having low progesterone is the fact that you suddenly wake up in the middle of the night, you are not a good sleeper anymore, right? And so on and so forth. And then the other thing we talked about was that your cycles are now becoming shorter. Say from the regular 28-day kind of a goal, become, your cycle is now 26 days. And some of you might be experiencing a lot more anxiety. Like, there's a lot of women who feel like they've always been very confident and kind of, calm and grounded. And ever since they hit a certain point in their life, they feel a lot more sort of antsy and fearful and anxious. And so progesterone is a highly calming hormone. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. It's not only your reproductive hormone, it's also a highly calming hormone. And so it can make a big difference in how you feel. But I want to go over some other symptoms as well, because it's not just about sleep. It's not just about losing fertility. It's not just about your cycles getting shorter, but it's actually a lot more to it. So Jen is going to pop in a link to our article about topical progesterone, the when, why, and how, part 1. And if you are watching this on Instagram, if you look at our bio, there is the article link is there. It's a very comprehensive one. So symptoms of low progesterone, what else could there be? Hot flashes and night sweats, that's a big one. Like I mentioned, insomnia, midnight waking, fertility, menstrual problems, so subfertility. And this, by the way, this does not have to happen to women 45, but like any woman, in fact, who's having subfertility issues, for example, miscarriages in the first trimester, are often correlated with low progesterone, because progesterone in that case, as a reproductive organ hormone, is there to carry through the pregnancy. Progestation, as the name implies, right? Progesterone, progestation. So PMS and PMDD can be correlated with that. So it's generally, what we call estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance can manifest in two different ways. How you break down estrogens to clean and dirty is one way. The balance between estrogen and progesterone is another form of estrogen dominance. So having terrible PMSs and PMDD, sometimes just correcting progesterone, can make a big difference for a woman. Anxiety and restlessness, like what I mentioned, irritability and nervousness, low moods and depression, especially around ovulation and just before your period. Mood swings, weight gain and cellulite, especially around the thighs and buttocks. That's a typical estrogen dominance kind of, weight gain. Fluid retention, your fingers and toes swell up and it's hard to take your rings off, right? Have you experienced that before? So it's interesting because estrogen and progesterone, they work together in tandem. And think of it this way, like estrogen is there to make the lawn grow higher, like lawn as in like a grass grow higher. And progesterone comes in there like a mower and just cuts it down, right? So you need both in order to have a nice lawn or a nice hormonal balance. But you can't have more than the other. And so a lot of the times we have a lot more estrogen as compared to progesterone. And that can result in fluid retention. So estrogen is what helps you retain water, which you need to some degree too. And progesterone comes in and then it takes the retention down. That's why progesterone is a very mild diuretic. And so when you are very swollen, you can't put on your shoes, you can't take off your rings, that can be due to low progesterone. Brain fog is another one, low thyroid function, pain and inflammation, osteoporosis and osteopenia. A lot of us think, we've been conditioned to believe that all you need for healthy bone health is calcium. And that can be further from truth. We have articles about that on our blog. Your bone consists of calcium, yes, but also magnesium, vitamin D3, K2, manganese, boron, the list goes on. It's actually so, and hormones, including estrogen and progesterone, are key. So estrogen builds up the scaffolding. Progesterone helps the mineral to go and park in the bone. So that's the reason why, young women generally don't have osteoporosis, because they don't have low estrogen and progesterone levels. And osteopenia, osteoporosis starts later, further down in life, as our hormones change as well. So as you can see, it's not just calcium. Excessive menstruation, that's another one. Hypersensitivity, migraine headaches before a cycle, that's a super common one. But also migraines during ovulation could also be correlated with low progesterone. Decreased libido, and that's a big one, you guys. Decreased HDL, good cholesterol, right? A lot of women are experiencing that. It's in fact, cardiovascular health and cardiovascular deaths are the number one reason why women actually die. And so interesting, I did not know that, and till I started doing this work. So, what are you experiencing from that whole low progesterone, spectrum of things? Share that with us, and so I can read this out, so folks don't feel like they're alone, on this journey. I certainly, the way I started feeling like my progesterone was beginning to tank was, or just decrease, was that my cycle became shorter. And then I started having problems with sleep, right? So I'm just not been, ever since I corrected my progesterone levels, that's when a lot of wonderful things started happening. And my cycle is still shorter. So it's gone down to like 24 days now. And it's shorter. So it's like shorter cycle, but also less days. Like instead of menstruating for 4 days, I only menstruate for 2 days now. And eventually it will eventually stop completely, right? So it's like a really nice way. I'm kind of like easing into perimenopause without any drama. So Jenny is saying not sleeping well at all. Her cycle is much longer. Okay, so that's that could also be due to low progesterone, depression, zero energy, anger. Do you know if it's low, if you're in, I don't understand the question. What about postmenopause? Yeah, so let's talk about postmenopause. Is a good question. Like, what about women in menopause, postmenopause? Do you need progesterone? And does it matter? The same way women who've lost their uteruses, right? Do you need progesterone? And why yes and why no? So, or why not? So let me just make sure I'm sipping on my, by the way, this is warm water with honey that's infused with thyme, garlic, and osha leaf. Okay. Yeah. So, interestingly, conventional medicine sees progesterone like a lot of other things that I think many of us would not agree with here. That's why you're probably here seeking help, other than talking to your OBGYN, is that progesterone is seen as a reproductive hormone, right? So progesterone, progestation, you just need it to get pregnant, deliver a baby, and then it's pretty much the role of progesterone is done. And they can't be further from truth. Like what I gave you, the whole list of symptoms, right? Is you can see women in menopause, perimenopause, or postmenopause depend on healthy amount of progesterone. Now, do you need progesterone? So let me just talk about this first. As you can see, like I talked about hot flashes, HDL cholesterol, mood swings, sleep quality, your brain function, right? Inflammation, sagging skin, thyroid function. As you can see, this has nothing to do with reproduction, right? It's got everything to do with just having a high quality of life. And so do you need progesterone when you're postmenopausal? Absolutely, yes. If you ask an ordinary OBGYN who has not been trained in hormones properly, or bioidentical hormones, or actually works with women in postmenopause, they will tell you, you don't need it because you're not going to get pregnant. So why use progesterone? But what about your bone health? What about your brain health? What about your cholesterol numbers? What about your sleep? Isn't that important? So the difference is going to be that you're going to need a lot less progesterone as you are entering, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopausal women. You just need less of that compared to a woman who wants to get pregnant, right? But you still will need progesterone in order to function well. If you have none of the symptoms that I talked about, good for you. You probably producing some small amounts elsewhere, and it's perfectly fine. But I think for vast majority of us, the symptoms of progesterone dropping can be really life altering, and the quality of life suffers tremendously. And that's why I really wanted to do this segment on progesterone, to educate you guys on how to correct it. So, the easiest way to do it is to obviously consider getting on a bioidentical hormone. So I can talk about this, and that's what I've been using personally. But there is, some of you might say, I don't quite like doing that. I prefer something more natural. What can you do to naturally boost your progesterone levels? And you can do that as long as you have your uterus. So you've got to have the uterus, you've got to have your ovaries, and what's called a corpus luteum, and that's where progesterone gets produced, right? So there are specific nutrients that you can add on a very proactive basis in order to support your body in producing its own progesterone. And the first one, as I mentioned earlier before I got the coughing spell, is vitamin C. So during COVID, I loaded up on vitamin C. And one of the things that happened right away was that my cycle went back to full 28 days from the 26th day. So that was a nice change. It did not last for very long. I kind of went back to, excuse me, being 24 days. But anyway, so that's one way you can do this. Another one is vitamin E. Research shows that vitamin E can help with native endogenous production of progesterone. Another one is zinc. So zinc is a wonderful mineral. And I love zinc. A lot of times we think of zinc, it's like, to support your immune system, which is very true. It can be great for creating a more stable integrity of your digestive tract. So like with people with IBS, zinc is one of the compounds that's really important in creating strong junctions in the gut, right? But zinc is also one of the nutrients for progesterone production. So you can add that in, just don't overdo it. Between 30 to 50 milligrams a day. That's your maximum that you want to do. Okay. I'm taking definitely zinc. I take zinc on a daily basis anyway. I just upped it up to about 50 milligrams from my usual 30, just because I'm still dealing with that stupid COVID. So that's the natural ways. Some women have amazing results with seed rotation. So for those of you who are curious about seed rotation, head over to our website, hormonesbalance.com, and I don't know whether, and just search for seed rotation. And there are some links that you can download on how to do that. So it is the sesame seeds and sunflower seeds that are used in the second part of your cycle that you can basically incorporate, and that can be very supportive of progesterone production. I attended a endocrine conference just a couple of weeks ago, and about 3 weeks ago, and that was and I made a post about phytoprogestins. And so until now, we did not think that progesterone can be found in actual food as a phytonutrient. It turns out that actually it does contain, and there's a number of different compounds. And so check out that post, and I talk about there about a couple of them. Camphorol is one of them. So it's found in things like kale, spinach, broccoli, endives, basil, thyme, leeks, grapefruit, and apples, oranges, and strawberries. There's another compound called apigenin and luteolin found in celery, parsley, thyme, again, basil, oregano, onions, chamomile tea, apples, oranges, and grapes. And then number 4, naringenin, which is also found in mainly Greek oregano, grapefruit, oranges, and tart cherries. So bring on those really interesting stuff. So that's something you can, is it correct? Is it going to correct your low progesterone levels just by doing phytoprogestins? It really depends on a person and how depleted you are, right? So if you're really struggling, then, considering adding bioidentical progesterone might not be such a bad idea. So I want to just maybe address one thing that we got a lot of questions about, that, like, do you need to get tested before getting on progesterone? And it's a really great and important question. It really the way I see this, and the reason why we sell it over the counter in our store, is because progesterone is really a benign hormone. Unlike estrogen and DHEA and testosterone, that you need to monitor how these hormones get broken down, and like how testosterone is converting to estrogen, how estrogen gets broken down to clean and dirty metabolites. It can be a big contributing factor in in doing bioidentical hormones. And so this is the reason why we don't sell DHEA or estrogen in our store. When it comes to progesterone, it's such a benign hormone that I have no issues. I don't feel there is any risk of doing it. You might be wondering, what about those women who have progesterone receptor positive breast cancer, right? It's a great question. And the answer is that actually that progesterone receptor gets upregulated because of estrogen dominance. So it's a woman hardly ever will not have progesterone receptor positive breast cancer without estrogen playing a role there, without DNA damage playing a role there. So for that reason, it's actually is estrogen. Again, it goes back to estrogen as the culprit here, and the DNA damage that happens. So there is, if you decide to go the route of bioidentical progesterone, a couple of things to look out for. If you have a favorite brand that you are doing, great. Just make sure that's a couple of things. It does not have any mineral oils. It does not have any phthalates in it. Phthalates are synthetic fragrances. And I just did a short video on Instagram and on Facebook about how to, can you tell the difference between synthetic fragrance and a natural fragrance? And when I say natural fragrance, I'm talking about something that comes from essential oils, and it says essential oils on the packaging and not using the word fragrance. And so anyway, so no mineral oils, no synthetic fragrances, no phthalates, no parabens that are found in it, right? Those are just like some really nice, clean products. We carry a couple of them in our store. One is an oil, and it's got no fragrance whatsoever. So for those of you who can't tolerate a fragrance, that oil is a good option. I personally prefer our cream just because it is so much easier to absorb. And if you so basically 4 pumps gives you 25 milligrams of bioidentical progesterone that's derived from yams. And by the way, yam soups and yams, like eaten directly, does not raise your progesterone levels. So I just want to make sure you know this. Frankie and what was that series? Frankie and Joyce, right? Had like that business idea of Frankie making yam creams to help women. Doesn't quite work that way. It still needs to be modified in the lab to fit the progesterone receptor of a human. So yeah, and then the other thing I just want to mention before I dive into questions is where you apply your progesterone can make a difference in the body. I made a video about that a couple of days ago. In case you missed it, I just want to mention that, like just now I applied it on my wrist, right? So that's a thin skin. Anywhere that's thin skin, you get instant, like the progesterone gets into your bloodstream, into the lymphatic system pretty quickly. And the results are going to be, you can probably start feeling it pretty quickly. And so you can also apply it. It's important to rotate your spots. So you can also do that on your neck. You can do it back behind your neck. You can do that on your chest, and use the cream also as a sort of a moisturizing agent. Like our cream is really nicely formulated. It has a tiny bit of fragrance, but not essential oils, but nothing too strong. You can also do it on your feet, on the bottom of your feet, on top of your feet, because that's all of those places have very little fat. When it comes to slow action, meaning like, let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you want the progesterone to work throughout the night, right? You apply it for slow action, and the slow action is going to be in a fatty tissue. So that means you can put it on your breast, you can put it on your inner thighs, you can put it on your butt, or you can put it on your tummy as well. Okay, so this is some of the applications that you can rotate to get different actions from your progesterone. And you can do the same thing with estrogen. Okay, Jen, why don't we just jump into a few questions? the name of the cream, so it's in our store. It's called Progest Pure. If you go to wellena.com, WELLENA.com, the cream is right there. Which hormone is important for women age 46? From Georgiana. So, I mean, all hormones are important, right? Question is balance. And so, I mean, thyroid, what happens with women up to 46? Typically, what we see happening is estrogen goes down, progesterone goes down, thyroid function becomes compromised. So low thyroid function, right? And then for some people, some of you, maybe with pre-diabetes, diabetes, high blood sugar levels, and low insulin levels, right, are having insulin resistance are some of the basic hormonal imbalances, but there isn't just one important hormone. All of those hormones need to be in balance for you to function properly. Can lack of progesterone be part of Hashimoto's? Lately, my muscles and joints are in pain. How many times a day should progesterone be used? From Gina. So lack of progesterone be part of Hashimoto's? I think Hashimoto's, it can be a contributing factor, but there's so much more that's going on with Hashimoto's. It's an autoimmune disease. You're going to find out what's triggering an autoimmune disease, right? So gut health, parasites, nutritional deficiencies. I'll probably look at those things before looking at progesterone. However, estrogen dominance is one of the reasons why the conversion of T4 hormone to T3 isn't done effectively. So that's something to really look at. How many times a day should you use progesterone? So you can use it either in the morning, like for example, the full dose with our progesterone is 4 pumps. So you can do 2 pumps in the morning. If you're dealing with anxiety, you can do 2 pumps at night. Those going to help you sleep better. If you don't have no anxiety, like I don't have anxiety issues, then I'll just use it at night because it helps me with sleep. How should I get my levels of progesterone, estrogen, and estradiol measured? You can do something called Dutch testing, DUTCH. It measures all of that and more, metabolites, which is really important. And you can check out, there's a webinar that I did with Dr. Alan Hopkins. You can order Dutch yourself. You can go to yourlabwork.com /hormones balance, and there's a replay of the webinar, and you can order stuff there and then get some discounts. Is it beneficial for women after menopause? Yes. So I talked about this already. You might have missed that initial part, that progesterone is not just a reproductive hormone. It's also a hormone that gives us high quality of life, including bone, cardiovascular health, sleep, brain function, bone health, right? So inflammation in the body. So absolutely after menopause, you just don't need as much of it as a woman who wants to get pregnant. But it is a big misconception that we don't need progesterone. That includes also women who've lost their uteruses. The standard protocol doesn't even, it only gives them estrogen, and it does not even put them on progesterone, which is, from a functional BGYN perspective, it's a big miss. Jen, let me just go over to Instagram and see what we've got here on Instagram. Somebody's asking, how does low progesterone affect production of fibroids? Can they dissolve if progesterone is increased? So they can. And so fibroids are the result of estrogen dominance. And like I explained, estrogen dominance can happen because the way you're breaking down estrogens to clean and dirty estrogens is unfavorable. So correcting that can make a big difference, because those dirty estrogens actually fuel the growth of fibroids. And so if that is the reason why the fibroids are growing, that what needs to be corrected. If the growth of the fibroid happens because of an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen, then adding progesterone can definitely help. One other thing you might want to consider, in our store, we have these, it's called fibro support. Those are enzymes that actually specifically are designed to dissolve fibroid tissue. So those are enzymes that are systemic enzymes that are just chomping down on the fibroid tissue. They have some really nice research on it. So that's another thing that you can consider. Which type of zinc do you recommend? So zinc chelate is great. Zinc, picolinate is another great one. Just not zinc oxide. Avoid that one. How do you know how much to dose? In the past, I felt increased hot flashes. So, yeah, so you can go by weight, by body weight. 25, is actually a very low dose. But if you're very sensitive, you can start off as low as just one pump is about 6.25 milligrams. So if you're sensitive, just start off really low and then increase. If something is giving you hot flashes, make sure, first of all, you're using bioidentical hormones and not progestins. So that's really important distinction here, that synthetic progesterone is not the same as bioidentical progesterone. Okay, so a lot of women have side effects from doing that. One other thing, which I don't know whether, I'm sure the question is going to come up, so I might as well talk about it. What about progesterone taken orally versus progesterone applied topically? That makes a very big difference. So the one that's taken orally only has the effect on GABA receptors in the brain, so it's going to help you with keeping calm and helping you fall asleep. It does not have all these other benefits we talked about, things such as bone health and brain forgetfulness, and protecting your brain from aging, and giving you so HDL cholesterol, right? Bone health. Those features, functions those benefits are not. You will not be getting that from oral progesterone. Jojo is asking, can you temporarily use progesterone cream while you're trying to get back to it naturally? Sure, you surely can. And for some women it works and it kind of autocorrects, and for other women it doesn't. So, you can always use it for a month or two and see whether you get the correction. And if it doesn't, then your body's just probably not producing enough, and you might need to consider using it more long term, which I think there's nothing wrong with that. I'm 50. I'm 5 years postmenopausal. How much progesterone do I need to apply? So you can start off with 25 milligrams. I mean, there are some women who are put on as much as 120, 130 milligrams of progesterone, which I think is on a high side. I always believe at Wellena that you should start off very slow and then titrate up and just see, go by your symptoms. If you want to go much higher than 25 milligrams, then get testing done. Make sure that you're not too high on progesterone. So how do you know if you overdo progesterone, right? Because there's such a thing there too. So too much progesterone is going to make you feel very sluggish instead of foggy brained. So it's like too much of the good thing. It is a calming hormone, yes, but if you're feeling too calm, then it's basically you become foggy and slow and lethargic. And that's what your symptom signal is, that you've done too much of it. So I think I've answered the fibroid question already. If you have asked a question earlier on Instagram, I'm just going down the questions, then you can just repost it and then I will get to it. When I use a bioidentical progesterone cream and I get anxiety and panic attacks, is it a symptom, wears off, and body gets used to it? It can. Restored Mom is asking. The thing to consider here is that a lot of women with candida, what we have found is that women with candida tend to have a negative reaction or can have a negative reaction to progesterone. So that is your little tidbit there, then, that perhaps addressing candida first might be a really good idea, and then introducing progesterone. So that could be one way to do it. Goddess is asking, what day is best to test progesterone and estrogen? So if you're still menstruating, day 17 to 19 for urine and for saliva are the best. By the way, testing through blood is completely useless when it comes to steroid hormones. When I was in private practice, excuse me, let me just take a sip of my honey water. When I was in private practice, I would have women, going to see their OBGYNs and general practitioners and whatnot and getting their hormones tested and coming back and saying, my doc says everything is looking perfect. I have no problems with my hormones. Yet this person is having miscarriages. She can't sleep at night. She's putting on a lot of weight around her hips and thighs, can't lose that weight. She's got anxiety. She can't sleep at night. I mean, screaming, symptoms of estrogen dominance, potentially low progesterone, and yet her lab work shows normal. So just be very careful, not careful, but just be mindful of the fact that when it comes to steroid hormones, so progesterone, cortisol, estrogen, DHEA, testosterone, testing that through blood is a total waste of time and money. You want to do either, my favorite is urine testing through Dutch, or doing saliva testing through ZRT labs or doctor's data. All right, let's go over back to Facebook, Jen, and if you can just pop some questions. Lisa is saying, I have all the symptoms. I have the cream, but do not use because directions are based on days of the cycle. Yeah, so what is that? I'm not sure what the challenge is. So if you're not cycling anymore, then you use progesterone 25 days out of a month, and then you take 5 days break. If you're cycling, then it's all on our website, explain how to use that. So, okay, next question, Jen. I'm 61 and 9 years postmenopausal. How much do I need? So I think I've explained just now, 25 milligrams might be a great starting point, and then go by symptoms from there, or get tested and see whether your progesterone is in a healthy level for postmenopausal lady. Is it safe to use progesterone cream if you have DCIF? That's something you need to check with your provider. For liability reasons, I can't answer those in kind of these online settings. I think I've explained just now at the beginning of this video about estrogen playing a big role in progesterone receptor upregulation when it comes to breast cancer. So that's something to consider. I have your progesterone oil, but the dropper doesn't have amount markers. How much do I use? So actually, it does say 1 milligram on the whole dripful is 1 milligram. And no, sorry, the whole dropful is 20 milligrams. Sorry, it's 20 milligrams is a full dropper. It's on the label actually. So the oil is basically the full dropper is 20 milligrams. 4 pumps of the cream is 25 milligrams. Same kind of progesterone, just a different delivery form. Honeybee saying, I'm 39, should I start using it? So it really depends on your symptoms. I wouldn't unless my hormones are beginning to tell me otherwise. Like if you are experiencing symptoms of low progesterone that we had gone over at the beginning of this video, then I'll say definitely consider that because it's going to improve your quality of life. But just taking something for the sake of taking it, I wouldn't if you're not symptomatic. Marisa is saying, I've always had problems with progesterone, migraines worsen. What about estrogen kickback when taking progesterone? I don't know what estrogen kickback is. Jen, do we know what that is? Is it a product or something? So the, again, a question is the progesterone bioidentical progesterone or is it synthetic? And then addressing things like candida might be another really good idea with the migraines. And the thing is, here's the thing, right? Another thing I forgot to mention in case you are being sensitive to hormones, bioidentical hormones, is to consider Vitex, you guys. So Vitex, also known as chaseberry, we're going to start carrying that in our store in a couple of months. And but in the meantime, you can just get a tincture or get it from a brand that's sells something nice and clean. Chaseberry is in Germany actually used as a first line of intervention when a woman has low progesterone levels, and so it is a natural. It contains phytoprogestins and improves your progesterone levels. Some women swear by it; I can't function without it. Other women just can't do it. I'm one of them. So that's part of the reason why I've been reluctant to use chaseberry or selling that in our store. But I also realized that everyone is a little different. In my case, for instance, like if I do chaseberry. And I try different doses as well. I get pulsating in my ovaries, and then I get mid-cycle spotting, which I never have otherwise. And so that obviously shows me that. Any thoughts on maca? Yes, so maca is another great one. I forgot to mention maca is a wonderful one too. We like Mighty Maca from Dr. Anna Kebeka, and that's a maca can also help to increase progesterone levels. So that's some of your alternatives. So if you're sensitive to, I mean, I talked about it, that progesterone, it can be, because you're taking synthetic form, because you've got candida going on, because you've got some people with adrenal issues might be having a reaction to progesterone as well. And it gives you an opportunity maybe to work on that and correct it. But if you correct in that and you're still sensitive to progesterone, then you've got alternatives, right? We talked about the natural stuff, vitamin C, vitamin E, zinc, seed rotation. Now you have also an option of Vitex, you have an option of maca. All of those are very gently can raise your progesterone levels as well. And let me jump over to Instagram. Began using a bioidentical progesterone cream as advised by my doctor in the 14th day of my cycle. Can I delay the start of bleeding? This is the first month I'm using it. So it depends on, yeah, I mean, you can. I wouldn't mess around with it too much though. And the other thing is, like, if you are, if you're not planning to get pregnant, you're not emulating your cycle as such, you can actually start it on day 5. So 5 days after your period, right? And then use it for 25 days or 23 days, and then having a few days off, and then starting all over again after 5 days after your period. Okay. Can progesterone, let me take this one. Can progesterone be used in vagina the same way as estradiol? No. So there is no progesterone receptors in the vagina or the uterus. And so for that reason, you never find progesterone cream that's applied vaginally. Okay. Jen, anything else that we've got? Stacy's saying, I used progesterone a few years back and I had emotional meltdown. Then I stopped. Why might have that affect me that way? So, so I mean, we are kind of going back to the same conversation about what kind of progesterone and what else is going on in your body, right? So, first of all, establish that it is bioidentical progesterone, not progestin. That is, you don't have candida, that your adrenals are in a good health. And so those are some of the major things to. All right, I need to take this one because this is a really good example of complete ignorance. My doctor says there is no proof progesterone cream can do anything. This is a good example of complete lack of curiosity and interest in on the side of the provider. I mean, I invite you to go and check out our article about progesterone, topical progesterone, and all the citations that we use at the bottom of the article, or better still, as the provider, to go to PubMed and just enter bioidentical progesterone, and just to see the volume of research there is there to substantiate it. So it's just very sad, and it's such a big disservice for women to say such a thing. I just turned 60 on the 5th. Congratulations, Angie. And I'm experiencing a lot of facial hair growth. Can I balance my hormones to stop this? Yes, absolutely. So facial hair growth happens for a couple of reasons. One is when you're already 60, is most likely because one of the symptoms of menopause is that your body is producing more testosterone. So let me just talk about first, in young women, facial hair or loss of hair, especially in the front here, right, is largely due to high testosterone levels. And that happens when it's a metabolic issue, becomes high blood sugar imbalance of high blood sugar levels, insulin resistance, right? So that causes high testosterone to go up. And now in women in menopause, you might be having insulin resistance and blood sugar balance. I'm not saying that's not impossible, but what we also see with menopausal women in their 60s and above is that your body is just producing more testosterone, because testosterone gets converted to estrogen, and your body is kind of like is using the signaling process when it says, hey, I'm not getting enough estrogen, right? And so I'm not getting enough estrogen, so it's producing more testosterone, because testosterone is the first hormone that gets converted to estrogen. And then that excess testosterone produced can cause women to have some facial hair started to grow. You can't really do much about it. One way to very gently correct it is by introducing phytoestrogens. So my favorite would be flaxseed, using a couple of tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed that contains estrogens. And so your body that way gets the message then it's like, I'm getting some estrogen. It's okay. Stop pumping out so much testosterone. I don't need the facial hair. So that's one thing you can easily change. All right, let's do one more question. And I do want to preserve my throat for obvious reasons. My testosterone is high. Will progesterone help that? No, your testosterone is high because most likely your blood sugar levels are higher. And so what happens is, like in the case of pre-diabetic, diabetic women, what happens is, as your blood sugar levels are elevated, your sex hormone binding globulin, which binds up sex hormones such as testosterone, goes down. So there's this reverse reaction, right? High blood sugar levels, sex hormone binding globulin drops. And when it drops, then there's too much testosterone floating around, and that testosterone can be causing issues. That's the reason why with women with PCOS, correcting blood sugar balances and metabolic issues is one of the big things that need to be corrected. So I would look into your blood sugar balance first. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for being here today. I'm sorry about the coughing bouts, and it's just such a reminder that even people who are super healthy, like the way I am, COVID hit me really hard, and I think all the symptoms I actually kind of sailed through it pretty quickly. Day 5, day 6, I was in pretty good shape, but it's really my lungs, which is probably my biggest weakness. It's been really it has been really bothering me, and so so it's such a reminder that it's even healthy people like me can struggle sometimes a little bit. I'll just do one more quick one. Katie's asking, does flaxseed oil give estrogen? No, it doesn't. So it has to come from a flaxseed itself. That's where the phytoestrogens are to be found. All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope this is helpful for you today. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that our Progest Pure right now, we have this offer going on that you get a bottle of vitamin C that is amla, so it's 100% food derived. It's a wonderful formula, and it's worth $37. So you get the bottle for free until I can't remember. I think until the 17th or something like that of this month. So just one more week to go. If you want to take advantage of that and try our vitamin C, that will be a good time to do that now. All right, thanks everyone, and thanks for all the good wishes, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.